Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to another video. So I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I want to share with you my sort of top 5 card making hacks and tips and tricks just to help sort of speed up the process of card making a little bit, hopefully save you a little bit of time and money. And I'm just going to show you some alternatives to products that you can buy versus maybe things you've already got in your stash. So let's get started looking at my first card making hack. So the first hack I want to share with you is just regarding mat and layering, and really when I started doing this hack it just saved so much time having to measure, having to work out what size mat and layers that I needed to have. So if you're a little bit newer to card making, you're not 100% sure what mat and layering is, let me just explain that really quick. Mat and layering, quite simply, is just layering card onto, or paper onto your cards and projects. So with this card here, I've got my orange card base, that's one layer. I've got a black scalloped edge matte layer, that's a second layer, and then I've got my third layer being the main focus of my card. So you can see by adding this black scalloped edge matte and layer in here, it just really elevates the card, makes it a little bit more interesting, a bit more eye-catching, and just it really makes it stand out a lot more. So when you do your mat and layers, so your base layer, at this point being my card blank, is going to be bigger than the mat that's on top of it, and then again that is going to be bigger than my top panel. So you need to work out what sort of size border you want to have all the way around your edge. So back when I first started card making, I would measure my cardstock and then cut down, or sort of work out what size border I wanted to have and then cut down my cardstock there. But this is hopefully a little bit of an easier trick. It's definitely saved me a little bit more time. So here I've just got a really basic patterned paper piece. This is 15 centimeters. So what I would used to do is measure my cardstock, say this is 15 centimeters. If I wanted then to create a mat and layer for this, I would then add on 1/2 centimeter onto the size of my patterned paper. So if this is 15 centimeters, I would then cut a mat to go underneath it that was 15.5 centimeters. When it's whole numbers like that, it's absolutely fine, but when you start having like 15.3 and I've got to add 1/2 centimeter, if I want to have then another mat and layer, then I've got to work out what another 1/2 centimeter is on top of that, and it can just get really confusing and quite time consuming as well. I don't want to have to spend my time thinking about maths, I just want to create my projects. So let me share with you just this really easy card making hack to help with your mats and layers. So if I want to mat and layer this onto my white cardstock, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually stick this on first. So beforehand I would cut my mat and layers before time, then I would stick them down, but I'm actually just going to stick this down first. And instead of sort of going right in the corner and trying to eyeball it, I'm going to come in a little bit, and that's going to give me a much bigger border. I'm going to try and get it as straight as possible, and I'm just going to stick it down. Then I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer. So the paper trimmer that I've got here, this is the Tonic Studios. So this has got measurements in inches and centimetres. It's a really fabulous paper cutter, and you know, really great if you want to measure and work it out. That's absolutely brilliant for this. But this is what I've started doing. So here you have got 2 rulers. Again, one side you've got centimetres, the other you've got inch. So we have a gap in here, which is where my blade is housed. And then I have a cutting line right in the centre of those lines. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the edge of my patterned paper, and I'm going to line that up with the edge of this first ruler. So I'm not going to put it right up against here, because if I've not put this down straight and it's not straight with this edge, then it's going to come out wonky. So all I'm going to do is literally just line up my patterned paper with this line here. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me a 1/4 centimetre border around my patterned paper. So you can see there we've got a 1/4 centimetre, lovely border there. It's completely straight with our patterned paper, and it just gives a really easy mat and layer. So let's do all the other side. So again, I'm just lining up my patterned paper with this edge of the ruler. and it's going to be exactly the same. So let's now just do the other side. And I know, because I'm using the same sort of guideline points, I know that my mat and layer is going to be exactly the same all the way around the edge. And again, like I said, that's giving you a a quarter of a centimetre border all the way around. So if I was to then mat this onto some black cardstock, so let's stick this down. We can do the exact same thing again. So I'm going to bring it away from the edge. And then I'm now going to line up my white edge. So of my, what will be my middle layer, I'm going to line that up with this section on the edge of my ruler. And once again, that is going to give me that same quarter of a centimetre border all around the edges. And so now I have got 3 mats and layers. I've got 3 layers that I can pop onto a card, and I know it's the same all the way around. I know that my black layer is exactly the same border as my white layer, and it just gives a beautiful sort of finished and polished look. So instead of wasting time having to measure, again, I literally just use this and it's just perfect every time. So hack number 2 again is regarding mat and layers, but you're not going to do this if you have created a mat and layer in this way. It's just not possible to do. But you have seen me do this in previous videos, you've seen me talk about this, and it's cutting out a square in the middle. So again, I've got a mat and layer here. So my cardstock is not quite the right size, but so if I was to create a mat and layer, and I think this is a really great hack if you do post a lot of cards, because then the postage could end up being a lot more expensive, because your cards generally are a lot heavier, especially if you're using heavier cardstock on there. If you're using, let's say for example, 100 GSM, and say each of these was 100 GSM, all of a sudden you've got 300 GSM weight of paper, and that's just in 3 mats and layers. If you then to add that onto a card base, let's say that that was a 300 GSM card base, you've then got 600 GSMs that you're going to have to pay postage on. Whereas with this hack, it is going to cut down on A, the amount of postage hopefully that you're going to need, and B, it's going to just help stretch your papers a little further. So if you have got a really lovely piece of patterned paper, or you know, a nice piece of cardstock that you want to use as a mat and layer, but you know, because it's just kind of wasted behind there, part of me doesn't see the point, so I do kind of do this in my own card making. Again, you've seen me do it in some of the videos that I share here on YouTube. I don't always do it just because it's a little bit more time consuming. So I know that, so if I'm doing it in centimetres, that I'm going to have a quarter of a centimetre border, or sometimes I do it in inches, so I will have a thicker border, but I will tend to just cut out a section in the middle. So I know this is pretty much going to go right to the edge, so I could cut quite a big panel out of here. So I'm just doing this freehand, and it doesn't really matter how neat it is, because who is going to see it? This is also really great if you wanted to use foam pads on here. Again, you're not going to see it. If you want that dimension on your cards, you literally won't see this. But it's just a great way to really stretch your cardstock. So now I can use that. I could use it as a mat and layer, I could use that as a background, I could stamp a sentiment onto that. You know, that could be quite valuable cardstock right there. But now if I was to, let me just cut this down a bit. So if I was then to mat and layer this, you would never know. So let's just really quickly obviously glue it a little bit neater than that. And there you go. So I've got a piece of tape on the back, but I don't actually need the tape because I don't have a centre to my mat and layer. So a little bit too much glue on there. But that really looks no different to that. But we've saved that whole piece of cardstock. And with this piece here, we've mat and layered that twice. What if you used 2 really great pieces of cardstock to mat and layer that up, get a really beautiful effect? You know, you could save even more cardstock than you could on there. So again, hopefully that's just two hacks, just looking at matte and layering, just something really basic in card making, but again, something that's going to save you time and give you a really even, beautiful set of matte and layers, and then something that's just going to save you a little bit of money and just help stretch your supplies just that little bit further. Okay, so for hack number 3, again, this is something that I have briefly talked about in previous videos, but it is using what is known as funky foam back when I was a kid, but foam sheets instead of foam pads. So I do run out of foam pads quite a lot, because I feel like, especially if you've got bigger projects, if you did want to matte and layer this, but you wanted to have this up on you know, dimensions, to cover this 15cm sheet, you're going to need quite a few foam squares to help support the whole of this top piece. And that's really what, you know, you're creating dimension, but you really need this piece to be supported. You don't want to just have it around the outside and then have the inside sort of sag in. I've certainly had that happen to projects and cards that I've created. So you really need to support the whole of that panel. But again, buying foam pads, yes, you can buy cheaper ones. I have whinged in the past videos about some ones that I bought from the pound shop that I just thought were awful. I did buy like a big pack from Crate and Craft. I knew that sort of Hunky Dory do really great ones as well. They're a little bit thicker. These are just Dawn Bibby design ones. I got these from my nan. So, you know, and they come in loads of different kinds of shapes. So if I just show you these ones here, so, you know, you can get sort of longer, thinner ones. They're just, again, longer, sort of thicker ones. You can get the really tiny ones. These ones are the squares. You can get sort of long ones. You know, there's so many sort of a variety of shapes, thicknesses, loads of them. But I find this can be quite expensive, again, because if you are doing a sort of bigger panel and you do need to have that great support on there, I have honestly found that using something like this has got 8 sheets in here. I want to say this was like £1.50 maybe. I picked it up from the range. This has got 3-4 different colours in it by the looks of it. The white is the ones that I tend to use the most, and black, it depending on what I'm lifting, and if you can see down the side of it, it depends what you want to see. And then, I mean, you've seen me before use this for other stuff, so I've created a stamp from it as well. But I just think, you know, it's a decent thickness. It's not too thick, but you could then, if you wanted to have it thicker again, you could just fold over, glue 2 pieces together. I think that would work just as well, but I just think this is so great as an alternative to foam pads, and again, a great price point as well if you do this quite a lot. So let me just sort of show you an example here. So I've cut it's just again a piece of pattern paper that I've got lying around. So let me take this piece as well, and I'll just use that square that we cut out from this backing piece. So again, I'm using this scrap bit of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one, and I'm going to use these again. These are squares, and again, you want to be able to support the whole of your project. So this will probably take 9. Yeah. So, I mean, I still use these foam pads. I'm not saying that these aren't great to use. I think they're a really great tool for any crafter to have. My point is, you know, for that small piece of card, I've needed to use 9 of those. You know, and it's not like these are massive and a whole big sheet of them. I just think that the funky foam is going to support, it's going to give much better support. Like I said, it's a much better price point as well. And it's just a little bit easier. These ones have got quite easy release backings on them, but I know some of the sort of cheaper brand ones are just awful. Just take ages. So let's just plonk that right in the middle. So we've got some really great dimension on there. Obviously you can see just down there, you can see between the gaps, and obviously that's going to be the same on all sides, but it is pretty much supported apart from those few gaps in between those sections. It's pretty much, you know, really well done. But then with our foam, so again, this isn't as thick as what those foam pads are, but you know, like I said, you could just put 2 together. really easy to cut down. So you could use the guillotine if you wanted to. You could create this the exact same size. I tend to make it just a tiny bit smaller. For this purpose, obviously, I've just cut it as it is. I usually tend to use glue on this, and I think that usually works quite well. So straight onto there. Glue on the back. And then straight on to my project. So yes, I haven't gone all the way to the edge with that, but then you can't really see down it unless I bend it. You can't really see. Yes, it's a little bit obviously going down on the edges, but like I said, if you will cut that straight to the edge or just, you know, even half a centimetre smaller, you wouldn't get that. But nowhere in there is that not supported, where again in here I can literally go down the grooves where the foam pads aren't, and that section isn't supported. And all of this, I can run my finger all the way across the middle of it, and that whole piece is just supported. So from that, if you were to make 2 of these cards, you'd probably, I don't know, use the whole of that, maybe not. But then think how many squares you could get out of an A4 sheet of foam. Okay, so for hack number 4, talking about adhesives mainly for die cuts. So I do have some of this stick it. So this is sticky, like double-sided adhesive sheets. You can cut this down. It's got release papers on both sides. You can attach it to your cardstock and run it through your die cutting machine, and you've just instantly got that adhesive on the back. No mess, super quick. This is brilliant, brilliant stuff. But again, as an alternative to that, the good old-fashioned double-sided tape. And I only did this for the first time the other day. I was creating some cards for one of the Hunky Dory design teams that I'm on, and it really just made all the difference. And I didn't have to go rummaging for this. I didn't have to cut it down, stick it on the back. It kind of shocked me really when you don't really think of these things until it pops in your head, and well, that's a good idea. So in here, I think there was only 5, so there's 5 A4 sheets, I think it's A4 roughly, in here. Like I said, really great stuff. Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure how much it is, but I will have a look. But again, most people have probably got double-sided tape, so let me show you exactly how this can work. So I'm going to take one of these Hunky Dory Moonstone dies. This is the Floating Feathers. This is released not that long ago, and it's a really beautiful die set. So let me take a piece of cardstock. So again, just random paper. If you see my last video where I created the tags using the last magazine, the last creative stamping magazine, I did use this. So again, it's just lying around on my desk. But all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay down lines of double-sided tape. And this is virtually no different than using those double-sided adhesive sheets. It's all exactly the same stuff, but I just think this is so much quicker. And again, I don't have to go rummaging for anything. So let's pick. So this is obviously more of like a skeleton. I would call it more of a skeleton. It's just sort of the outline. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do one of these, and I'm going to do one of these more sort of solid images. So let's just make this a tad bigger. Obviously, don't forget you want this to be on the back, not on the front. Although, if you did put this on the front, added a little glitter or embossing powder, something like that, that would be really lovely. Okay, so let's pop our dies on there. Let me find my purple low-tack tape just to hold these in place while it runs through my Gemini. Just like so. Let's just make sure that that's cut really lovely. Okay, so you can see I've obviously got a lot more than what I needed there, but that's okay. So let's take these out. Let's purple tape is okay on certain material and cardstock, and others it's absolutely rubbish. Okay, so let's get out all these pieces. Okay, so here are our dies. So really beautiful, that cut really, really lovely out of that craft paper. But if we just turn them over, you can see we have the adhesive on both sides. So let's bring back our super random cards that we have managed to create in today's video. I am going to grab my pokey tool just to help me take this off. We are just going to peel back the double-sided backing. So you can see that I've put the tape where it's going up the feather, meaning then that I've got sort of 3 or 4 long pieces. I've not done it this way where then I'm going to have loads of pieces to take off. So that's just makes it just a little bit easier. And the whole back of that is now sticky. So if you were to use, you know, if you had good cardstock, if you had good strong double-sided tape, this is going to stick so well. So let's put that down. Okay, so you can't really see that tone on tone. I think it looks okay. But this one is the kind of die that's going to cause the most amount of grief for me personally. If I was to have to stick this down, I would end up getting glue everywhere. It would go all the way, just splodge right out of all of the pieces that have been die cut, and it would just look an absolute mess. So for these really delicate kind of dies, I think using a adhesive sheet is a really good idea. It just makes it so much more quick and clean. But again, just pull out the double-sided tape. So once again, that is completely sticky. Okay, so you really can't see that, but yeah, just absolutely really, really sticky on there. And it just, I mean, okay, I can pull it off, mainly because my double-sided tape isn't the best stuff in the world, but then I could still then reposition it. But then that's only come off because I've just wanted it to come off because I've picked it up. But I just think using double-sided tape is a great, again, a really great alternative. If you run out of this stuff like mid-project, this is a really great alternative. But again, as a price point, something you may already have in your stash, you don't have to go out and specifically buy this product. You could literally just use your double-sided tape. Okay, so for my last hack, it's not really a hack, this is more of a pet peeve and kind of just my way of getting around it. So again, I've mentioned this before, but I use pretty much 90% of my cards are made with pre-made card bases. I do buy these, they've got the envelopes already with them. It just makes life so much easier for me personally. But for some reason, they have decided, and by they I mean card manufacturers, have decided that yes, this comes in an 8x8 inch card with an envelope, but the cards don't measure 8x8. It's actually the envelopes that are 8x8. So they're actually telling you the size, well, that's even bigger than 8x8, but they're telling you really the size of the envelope, not the size of the card. And this then comes back to, sort of circling back to the mat and layering and having to work out sizes of your mats and layers, and it just being a little bit more hassle than really what I want it to be. Like I said, I want to spend my time creating. I don't want to sit measuring and working numbers out and things. Yes, I can do that, but I don't want to. I literally just want to create my cards and just have a really good time doing that. So if I wanted to create an 8x8 inch card, so these days I do work in inches rather than centimeters, only because for my brain it's just a little bit easier to work out. And again, anything to make the process of preparing my card and actually being able then to put everything together, I want that to be as easy as possible. So I do end up cutting these down. So like most people who use inches, I do just go the 1/4 of the inch route. So if this is just under, let's not cut off the that end, because that would be disaster. So I would literally just cut it down. So I'm going to cut it down to 7 3/4 inch. I'm literally just going to chop my card down. So again, I might do that a little bit smaller if I wanted a smaller card. But yeah, just chop it down, and then that's so much easier. I don't have to think about it. I know that my card base is 7 3/4, so I will do my first layer at 7 1/2, and then I could do my next layer at 7 1/4, and then maybe my top panel could be smaller than that again. So let's just create a layer. Okay, so again, just a random piece of cardstock from my desk. So we know our card is 7 3/4, so to make things easy, my next layer down is going to be 7 1/2. That looks ace. Let's make a card using this really messy thing that we've created here. So maybe, I don't know, maybe let's say we want to put another layer in there. Grab another piece of card. So then I want to do that at 7 1/4. So I've cut my base down, and then how quick and simple was that? Literally just to make those mats and layers. So yes, there are 2 ways of creating your mat and layers. Like this, where I know the size that I want to create. That is quick maths there, and I do a combination of this and what I showed you in the first hack, which is then to use the paper trimmer as a guide to cut it down. So it really, I do both, and I use them both together. It really depends what kind of size mat and layer that I want to have for my card. So you can see here where I've used the inches, I've actually got a bigger guide around it, and I really love mixing big borders, or you know, thicker borders with thinner borders. And then of course we've got the thinner borders that we have created on our paper trimmer. So let's just really quickly, let's just glue this down and make a super quick and easy, not the, you know, maybe not the nicest looking card. So there is our second layer. So let's add on, so this is the panel that we created right at the beginning. So there's just a really quick, basic, little bit of a rubbish card there that we've actually used all of these hacks on to create. So again, it might be a little bit on the messy side. We've even got a sentiment. So it might be a little bit on the messy side, but hopefully I've sort of proven my point that all of these hacks are things that I do. I do think that they are really great time savers, save a little bit of money, and they just work. I think that's the biggest thing. Anything to help crafting just work a little bit better. I just think that really makes all the difference. So that's it for this video. It's not as polished or put together maybe as my other videos are. It's a little bit more just me kind of talking to you. I tend to talk quite fast and maybe go through things maybe a little bit too quick. If I have done that, my apologies. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below, and I'm happy to answer any questions or anything. If you did like this video, or the chaos that it was, please leave this video a like. It's really appreciated, and my channel is growing so quickly, so beyond all my expectations. I just want to say a really big thank you. I really, really do appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so you don't miss out on any future videos, and happy crafting!